I had to upload another video after I made the last one. I commented about uh, Alexander Solzhenitsyn and the Gulag Archipelago, and I said I'm not comparing how it is now with the political structure he went then. And um, I'm thinking about it, man. You know what? Um, I had students in my classroom in 2017 whose parents were picked up by the government and were sent somewhere else. Um, and if you really think about it, um, what's been going on with the people that are coming here, we caused those problems, man. You know, you can't turn these people away. It's immoral. Even if you don't believe it's immoral, or whatever you believe, it's immoral, right? Um, we helped set up Nicaragua. The CIA made money off of Pablo Escobar. Uh, you know, we caused the problems that destabilized Central America. That caused the problems, man. You know, um, it's um, Aldous Huxley wrote a book called The Brave New World. uh, I should start a book club, man. But in the book Brave New World, right, he talks about the memory hole and how people kind of forget uh, about it, right? And yeah, we can't turn our backs on these people, and they're people, right? I so despise that term. I'm so glad that at least the people who are on the media, the actors, the news readers, we don't have journalists, man. No, we have journalists. Rachel Maddow is a journalist. Jorge, that guy on, I apologize, I don't remember his last name, and I don't want to massacre it. But there's a few journalists, but the rest of these people are just news readers, right? But yeah, I hate that term. Illegals. People aren't. They're people, man. People. And what we are doing to them, what we have done to them, and is yet another sin in this country. And I gotta say, man, it's hilarious, right? My parents are immigrants, and I'm the son of an immigrant, and I'm a veteran, and I'm an American citizen. And it's so weird. It's like uh, you can't criticize this country or something. It's like you gotta love this country like you're a child. you ever you ever seen like well, if you've ever, well, as a teacher you see it, but even if you think about it, back in elementary school, right? Don't say that about my mom. Come on, man, really? You know, your mama jokes turned into like there used to be an MTV show called Your Mama. The guy from the '70s show ran it, I think. uh, anyway, but you know, it's like you can criticize this country and say this country's done wrong. You know, in Dwight Eisenhower, actually in the Southwest out here in New Mexico and Arizona and California and stuff, he actually ran a program called Operation Wetback. That's true. That you can look that up. You please look that up. It'll blow your mind. It'll blow your mind, right? It really will. They literally called it that. I mean, they had news conferences and everything. I mean, when you think this country can't be racist, you just don't know. You just don't know, right? And so, but yeah, man, we have been doing that to people, right? We've been disappearing people. It's not funny, but that's another level of that. I was thinking about that. You know, I in the last video I said, uh, you know, I'm not comparing what we're going through with what Alexander Solzhenitsyn goes through, but aren't we though? Aren't we though? It's like, yeah, there's a whole Like, I could just not even a year and a half ago, we were screaming about the DACA students. I don't even understand why that's a question. If you came here as a child and you're going to medical school or you're going to college or you're graduating high school and you're going to contribute to the society, of course we want you to stay. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Ugh, I do not understand the stupidity of that. I don't understand it. No, I do understand it. I get it completely. There's a guy. I was gonna not Kraus. There's a guy who I follow who is a who does Twitter lectures. I don't know how else to put it, man. All he does is put these long history threads together on Twitter. Not that I spend all day on Twitter, but just the places that I go read, they always link to it because they're fascinating. And he was talking about how um, Donald Trump is the response to President Obama, right? Um, all the shit that President Obama went through, uh, it wasn't about him, man. The Dijon mustard wasn't about him. The tan suit wasn't about him. The even the birtherism thing wasn't about him. You know who was it about? It was about President Chavez in Albuquerque. It was about President Patel in Chicago. It was President, uh, uh, um, you know, whatever, right? It wasn't about him. It was about the future non-white presidents, right? And that need to maintain that social structure, right? That diminishment, you know, it's that's the price that they're willing to pay, man. Right? I mentioned about the people who do the open up protests. I don't see them film going up working. Ooh, you know what I'm saying? I don't see them film working at Walmart. Can you? That would be freaking hilarious, man. But yeah, they're not doing that. Uh, they're not trying to fill up the slots that the jobs that are open or anything like that. They're not volunteering at the hospitals. You want to go work so bad? I promise you, I promise you, the nurses and the people in the emergency rooms could use a hand emptying out the bins or whatever, moving the stuff around. I promise you, right? If you're that, you know what I mean? I don't get it. No, I get it. It's just, there's a famous quote from, I'm pretty sure I'm going to quote a lot of people, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to mess them up. But there's a quote from Bill Moyers of Lyndon Baines Johnson, the president, telling Bill Moyers that I've posted this quote multiple times on Facebook, so I pretty much got it memorized. But it goes something like this. Um, he says, if you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best black man or brown man or anybody, he won't notice if you're picking his pockets. Matter of fact, if you convince him that he enjoys the same privileges as the upper level whites, he'll empty his pockets out for you. You know what I mean? That's the thing, man. It's like no matter how the differences is, right. One of the Twitter threads, I wish I could remember this dude's name, and I don't want to go on my phone. I hate when I talk to people that open their phone. It's like, okay, I'll just leave. Um, uh, but he in another Twitter thread, he was talking about that, right. The disparagement, the differential uh, that you get, right? You don't you can make the $11 an hour in the factory in South Carolina, and be rest assured that you can Karen somebody getting arrested or killed at a park if you see a black family there. Or a Hispanic family will be intimidated if you pull up and they're at a park and you pull up next to a station wagon full of Hispanic kids at a park, and you pull up and you can just do that Karen thing, that I want to speak to your manager look, and they will be like, we need to go for this bitch calls the police on us, right? For no goddamn reason. What did Will Smith say? cell phones have made racism real for white people because they can actually see it happening, right? I know someone. I mean, this is the idiocy of it, right? Uh, that people there are people who literally have to see someone put on the Klan hood, light the cross on fire, and you know what I mean, and like do the big smile thing, and that might be racist. We don't know. You know what I mean? It just kills me. It just kills me. But yeah, man, aren't we desensitized to that now? There are whole communities living in terror, right? There are people who have gone missing now, who've gone missing, and what is it? What is it? Last May? No, 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 no. May 2018, right? Wasn't it May 2018? May 2018 is when we found out that was it 14,000 children under the age of 15 had been separated from their parents. Uh, right? Remember the little girl on the picture of was it Newsweek? The little girl whose mom was being arrested. And remember the recording where the border patrol guards are laughing at the children crying out for their parents. Man, you know. I think I pissed off one of my relatives earlier this week. I was talking to them, and they quoted me that quote from Gandhi that says, it goes something like this, right? Um, Whenever I despair, I remind myself that throughout history, there have been murderers and tyrants and despots and killers, and for a time, they seem invincible, you know, that, but in the end, uh, truth and love wins always, right? That's the quote. It used to, at a point in time, it used to that I used to soothe myself with that quote, right? It made me feel good to say it to myself or to alleviate what pains I've had. But if you really think about it, that quote is designed to make people feel good who are already in positions of privilege. The parent whose child was taken from them that we found out about in 2018, the nation, I mean, uh, it's now May of 2020. It's 2 years now. Some of those children were very young. You know, I got in trouble at my last job in Houston uh, because I made it known to the people there that as people working in education, we should have been out in the streets and protesting and been upset the most, right? Because um, as a teacher in my decade of teaching, I have had multiple uh, uh, young women, right? I had middle school 6 through 8 who have had issues during their menstrual cycle, right? Sixth graders, they don't know it's coming. Eighth graders might have forgotten. But in the schools, we have nurses, school psychologists, counselors. They're given new clothes if they need it. They're allowed to go home if they have to. They're allowed to sleep in the nurse's office. All these things supports, right? And I remember reading in 2018 when it came out in multiple news organizations that these young girls were in these cages, and some of them were just, oh man, just I never watched the Saw movies because I don't get off on horror porn. I don't get off on the suffering of others, and I'm not going to repeat the suffering here. But please look into it. It was May of 2018, and we found out about this. Young children, even young infants, even, right? And there's no one there, right? There's an old quote. It goes something like this: "The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world." And what we are doing to the people that we are tormenting, the children that we have taken from their parents, The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. We have yet to weep that whirlwind, man. It's wrong what we have done. And it's that numbness that I'm talking about, right? Solzhenitsyn writes that there's a book. So the Gulag Archipelago is like a trilogy, right? Like Lord of the Rings, except it's really happened. And there's another short. It's not really a short story. Well, I guess it's a short story according to Russian literature. It's like 480 pages or something, and it's the day in the life, right? It's one 24-hour day, and dude takes like almost 500 pages to write it. But it's a great. Don't. I'm sorry. I mean, it's a good book. You should read it, right? But it's that numbness, man, right? If you really think about it, dude, um, prior to COVID-19 ending the world for us, uh, we've become numb. We've become numb. What's that? What's that song by Pink Floyd? Comfortably numb, right? Right. Your voice is only coming through in waves, right? The memories, but Aldous Huxley talked about that in the memory hole, man. So think about that. Some of the other things that we need to really consider, what's going on with the meat packing industries, man. Oh my God. Oh, you know, I I don't wish for armed conflict. I don't wish for war. I've seen war, and it's not something I wish to see again here or anywhere. It's not right. You know, as an atheist, someone once asked me, "What's worse?" Or I think we were talking about going to war, me and someone else, and I told him, I said, "War is worse than hell. War is worse than whatever hell you can imagine. Right? War is worse than the Christian hell. War is worse than the Muslim hell. War is worse than the Jewish hell. War is worse than the Buddhist hell. I don't think Buddhists have a hell. Whatever, man. War is worse than any hell you can imagine. Right? And he's like, "What do you mean? You have no idea the tortures." And I thought he's going to pull out one of his pocket Bibles and read Revelations to me. He didn't. But and I told him, I said, "Man, yeah. See, who goes to hell, right? The people that have sinned against whatever moral precepts are in your religion, or sinned against the God in your religion specifically, right? Well, who gets harmed in hell? Those people who either have deserved it through violations of whatever weird laws your religion, don't cook bacon when you're naked laws you have, right? Uh, or have sinned directly against the big guy in the sky, right? Uh, or right, but in hell, in war, uh, who gets harmed? Everybody gets harmed in war, man. Right? The soldiers get harmed in war. The civilians get harmed in war. The old get harmed in war. The children get harmed in war. The young, the pregnant, the infant. Those who didn't even know war was coming get harmed in war. Those who tried to stop war get harmed in war. Everyone gets harmed in war. There are no innocents in war. Right? I hope none comes, man, but I was thinking about that. It's like you get numb to it, right? And when people become numb to things, really bad things can happen. Really bad things can happen. Speaking of those people, right? The open economy people. I don't understand their sense of wanting other people to serve them, I guess, when what is that? What is that thing, that meme go? When you are privileged, then even the slightest inconvenience seems like oppression, right? When you, even you're slightly inconvenienced, and man, I didn't mean for this to go as rambling as it did. I just wanted to uh, clear up something. It's not right thinking that what happened in for Alexander Solzhenitsyn in communist Russia, or what's happened in South America, caused by our actions and inactions. You know, Noriega uh, ruled Panama for quite a while with our help. You know, when we didn't need him anymore, we sent down the 101st Airborne and the 5th Mechanized Infantry Division and chased his ass into a Catholic nunnery. This really happened, right? I know it really happened because my ass was down there. That's amazing, isn't it? That's amazing. If I remember correctly, um, when Noriega made it to the Catholic nuns convent and asked for sanctuary, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh about this, but every time I think of this, I think of that Simpsons episode where Homer becomes a missionary because he pledged to like $100,000 to PBS, and Betty White comes to chase his ass down. So he runs into Lovejoy's inner sanctum. He's like, sanctuary, sanctuary. Reverend Lovejoy is, I should have never taught him that word, right? And the 101st Airborne surrounded the convent and played Highway to Hell, Hell's Bells. What was it? There's three AC/DC songs, and one of them is there's Highway to Hell, Hell's Bells, and there's another one about hell. I can't think of it right now. I like AC/DC, but I'm not much of a fan, that much of a fan to know it. But they put these big, giant, like Rolling Stones, Aerosmith speakers, and they surrounded the compound and the parking lot, right? So they weren't even on the property, but they played these AC/DC songs 24 hours a day on a loop for like a week. The Pope, the Bishop of Rome at the time, had to call the White House. This is pathetic, right? And literally, like, dude, the nuns can't pray because you're playing Highway to Hell and Hell's Bells at them at, like, 300 decibels or whatever. And so Noriega, through the negotiations, wow, of the Catholic Church, turned himself in. That's how the government caught Noriega, right? And we destabilized an entire region, and those people are fleeing that area to come here. And these assholes have the nerve to call them names and to treat them like they are another sin, right? And man, I did not think that America would end before I did, right? You don't think the country you're in is gonna like collapse in your lifetime, right? And you know what's funny is like in high school, like Red Dawn, the first one came out, and so many. I mean, I grew up in Texas, man, surrounded by these dipshits. Thought that Red Dawn was going to happen because I was out of high school in the middle of the Cold War. Cold War ended in 91, 90, no, 89, 90, something like that. Berlin Wall fell, and like a year or two later, there's Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev walking down Red Square, eating a fucking Big Mac. It was ridiculous, man. Um, anyway, what did Khrushchev say? We will destroy you from the inside without firing a single shot. God damn it, they did. Isn't that something? The NRA, well, the NRA, gun nuts, and white evangelicals got us here. Got us to where people are wondering what is going to happen if Cheeto Hitler decides not to leave, or decides to, or not decides. I'm sure he's already like tripping balls on Adderall about that shit. The election comes and he starts talking about rigged election and all this nonsense, right? What's the plan, Stan? What y'all gonna do, Drew? I don't know. I tell you what. I tell you what. I am really glad that the Black Panthers showed up in Georgia for Mr. Arbery's assassination, cold-blooded street murder. I'm glad they were there. They showed it on TV just a little while ago before I made this video. A dude was interviewed. He called himself Sergeant Rottweiler. That is like the best code name, dude. Well done. Just, but yeah, man. You want to know why the Second Amendment idiots are talking about all these laws? You know how these laws started? Look up the Mulford Act, right? School lunches, WIC, SNAP, all that shit was started by Stokely Carmichael and Huey P. Newton and the Black Panthers, man, right? For real, man. They really started that shit, and they had enough of the bullshit from California Highway Patrol and the sheriffs and all that. So like they rolled up to Sacramento, the state capital, just carrying double barrels and 12 gauges. It was the best, man. It was I'm pretty sure it was 1977 because I remember watching it on TV. I was like 8 or 9 years old, and it just blew my mind. Right? I couldn't wrap my mind around it, right? Because it was just bizarre. Dan Rather is young. You should look it up on YouTube. I'm sure it's there. Dan Rather was reporting it. Young Dan Rather, mouth just hanging open. I didn't know how to handle it. And America didn't know how to handle it because Ronald Reagan that year signed something called the Mulford Act and immediately did that gun nonsense, right? Right? So that's where we are now. There's a young gentleman by the name of Michael Harriot, and he does Twitter threads on that website that I read the Twitter threads on, and he pointed something out that there is a misconception. You know what I mean? It's like the Civil War thing. It's like only white people fought in the Civil War. That's a bunch of bullshit. But he said there's also a misconception that the civil rights only began and ended with MLK, and that's not true at all. Civil rights. They used MLK because he was a tame version. Because they said people didn't like Malcolm. And Michael Harriot pointed out through newspaper clippings and actual interviews, audio interviews, all of this is available on Smithsonian. It's amazing. There's that classic picture of El Malik Shabazz standing in the window with that M1 rifle. He's like looking out that window with that rifle right there, right? That's Malcolm standing there. And everybody thinks it was Malcolm that was like loaded to bear. It's like you show up, you roll up, you're gonna be limping back. That was the picture. The reality was that MLK was strapped in every room of the house. There is an audio recording of some white newspaper reporter and a white civil rights person or something, right? Somebody that was on TV talking about civil rights. Dude never rode the bus, but he was on TV saying it was cool to ride the bus. He wasn't riding no damn bus. And there's an audio recording of them being interviewed after visiting MLK. And MLK, and they said twice, not once, twice, MLK had to stop one of them from sitting because there was a loaded gun right under the pillow. I mean, if you think about the type of furniture that they had back then, right? I mean, we got all this Chase Lounge bullshit and sectionals. I saw a commercial with a TV that you turn one sofa into a 4-bedroom house or some shit. I don't know, whatever. But if you remember the kind of furniture they had, right? It wasn't very stuffed furniture. You just had the one cushion in the frame and the cushion came out. So if you had a loaded gun, it was either on the side or you were sitting right under it. So if he had a loaded gun and then it could have went off, But anyway, so it was MLK that had stuff like that, right? And there was a couple of things also that he was talking about. The reason that some things are called race riots are because it was the whites that got killed. He pulled up a newspaper article in South Carolina where a mob was chasing a young white girl had gotten killed, and there was some black teenagers playing on a beach near Charleston, South Carolina, and a white mob saw him and started chasing him, and they all ran to this dude's house. There's a paper clipping. His name is Michael Harriot. You can look him up. He posted the paper clipping, right, where the dude in the house, he sees this mob of white people on the other side of his fence. So dude just unloads, man. He starts sending rounds down range. He's just sending rounds down range, and so the sheriff rolls up. 4 people have been shot. 2 are dead. All of them white. And he posts other things about this, and the reason that I'm saying this here is historically there has been a numbing or a sense that only a certain group of people have a right to anger or weapons, and that's absolutely not the truth. Either the Second Amendment applies for everybody or it doesn't apply for anybody, right? Either, the blue line is real for everyone or it's not real for everyone, right? And it's real interesting. It's real interesting that when the Black Panthers showed up for Mr. Arbery in Georgia, you ought to read it. It's hilarious. Not the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I think they got it right from a few of the blogs that I've read, but there's been some other reports about the Black Panthers in walking the streets in that neighborhood, and it's funny how the subtle ways of writing the report or reporting what happened makes it seem like these guys are the lunatics. From the video, if you get a chance to watch your local news, I don't even know if your local news covers it. From the video, watch it without the sound on if you can DVR it, and watch it with the sound off first, and just see what you see, right? And then form your opinion of that, and then listen to how they report it. And it's bizarre, isn't it? It's like none of these guys of the Black Panthers are rolling up on cops screaming in their face. They really not. They're just walking the streets letting people know, hey man, it's cool, come on out. Because if you're cool with, 50 white dudes with their rocket launchers going to Subway, you should be perfectly okay with about 20 black dudes or brown men or Hispanic men or whatever. If I roll down the street with a bunch of friends and all we're doing is patrolling a neighborhood that had a murder in the bloody street, man, right? Dude was shot in the street. He's killed in the street. And if the neighborhood's frightened and me and 15 of my friends in the neighborhood, all within similar shades of melanin, right, are walking up and down the street carrying 12 gauges and double aughts and and AR-10s and 15s, people should be cool with that, right? But they're not, because you've been numb to the idea of that. And we need to get beyond the numb to the idea of certain people can be treated like they are, and certain people get privileges like they do. Because if this is white supremacy's last stand, if Donald Trump is it, I mean, hey man, pick who you want to pick. But if that's it, okie dokie pokey. I'll leave you with this. I'll leave you with this. In 2015, right? That magazine, Jesus Charlet, or whatever the hell it's called, the one that did the Muhammad with the bomb on his head, and the dude busted in and shot like three of their art illustrators or something, or editor or something. Um, right after that, there was a chick in Garland, Texas. If you ever seen Zombieland, right, the guy in the first scene, he's like, "This is Garland, Texas. It may look like zombies have destroyed it, but this is just what Garland looks like," right? In Garland, Texas, they wanted to do a drawing contest with, who's going to draw the best Muhammad with a bomb on his head, right? And when it became national news, because of course Fox News is going to report that shit. That was, but as soon as it became national news, Homeland Security let them dudes know. It was like, hey, listen, if some shit blows up in your town, or if bullets start flying, we're going to investigate you first. You're going to be part of it too. And they were like, you know what? It's okay. So they decided to come to Houston. And you got to love this about big cities, right? They figured this shit out cold, right? It's not just Houston. Los Angeles does it. Miami does it. Chicago does it. All of them do it, right? They got this thing. It works like this, right? If you show up with like 50 people to march, they're going to give you like a mile to march. Because 50 people, after about a mile, it's going to be groups of 3, 4, maybe half a dozen, right? Y'all ain't going to be 50 people. Y'all going to be real stretched out, okay? Okay? If you are, 1,000 people, they're of course going to expand your route. Just logistics, right? The bigger you are, the longer your route, right? So these guys show up to Houston, I think with about 100 people, and the Houston police and fire gave them their little pre-designed route, which is kind of down Elgin towards Texas Southern University, and then back up. Is it Crawford? I forgot what it is, the streets, but it's like, maybe it's down Crawford and up Elgin, but it's a little loop that takes you real close to Fifth Ward, or kind of into Fifth Ward, right? And those of you who are not familiar with Houston, Fifth Ward is like the blackety black part of town. It's Old Freedman's town, man, right? And as soon as these Second Amendment tough guys, these manly men, these white dudes with the AR-10s and the AR-15s and whatever else they carry, gotta look at that map. They canceled that route within like 72 hours. It was great because they showed up on City Hall. They have like Tranquility Park and City Hall's like right next to it. They showed up and had their little Second Amendment thing. Guys dressed up in camo surrounded by buildings made of white marble. It was hilarious, right? And they had all this, the goggles and the thing and all. It was great. And they got their little thing, and the next thing you know, real quietly on the news, Second Amendment protest march has been canceled. So yeah, I'm glad the Panthers are out there. Cool, man. Power to the people, right? Uh, please take care of yourselves. Please tell people that you love them as many times as you can, as often as you can, and take care of yourselves.